How you doing, people? Welcome back to another class guide for the Elder Scrolls Online. Today is the Nightblade, and I'm going to show you everything you need to know about this class. Now, the Nightblade generally, if you've played other MMOs, is more like a rogue in essence. You're supposed to be able to be quick, most of your abilities are single target, and you are quite good at attacking from the side or the rear, flanking the target regardless. You can go invisible, so you're very stealthy, and you can jump out of stealth with benefits. Now, how this class generally works up against other classes is that other classes tend to have very static skills. They have a resistance buff that you activate. They have a heal that you activate. Or they have a buff that you would activate on its own that may benefit in certain ways. This particular class has kind of a twist to that in that your bonuses and buffs and heals can come from multiple different sources if you line them up in the right order. So a resistance buff, for example, for us, being Major Resolve, we'll get to that later, doesn't come from a certain skill. It comes from a certain skill line, and activating one of them will give you the buff regardless. So it's about maintaining it with certain skills rather than having it tied to one specifically. So it's very different, and you will have to read your passives to understand this class. If you can master it, though, it can become very, very powerful in all roles. Healer, tank, or DPS. So, let's first of all go into the skill lines. 3 skill lines completely separate from each other, just like every other class, and now you need to know how to level them. So, how to level the skills is quite simple. You put one on your bar, and if you gain XP from quests or kills or wherever the source comes from, you will level up that skill line gradually till it gets to level 4. Once it gets to level 4, then you can morph it. And there are 2 different morphs for every single skill, which we're going to go over. But how do you progress through the ranks of the skill line? Well, this is quite simple. You take one skill from each skill line, regardless of what it is, and you put it on your bar. Technically speaking, when you start the 3 skill lines, once you've leveled them very, very slightly, or even if you've made a new character, you'll have those 3 to start with. You don't necessarily have to use them, but you need them to be present. If they are on your bar, when you gain XP, not only will the skills individually start to progress, but so will each individual skill line. The more of each skill line you have on your bar, the more that contributes to the speed in which it levels up. And these skills will unlock at set ranks, as will the passives. So the more you invest in these skill lines, as far as XP is concerned, the more you will unlock along the way. Now, I'm going to do a quick reset here just so the skills are not morphed so that we can then go over them individually. So we'll turn these all back to normal and we'll buy them one by one because otherwise this is going to get confusing. Yes, you can buy respec scrolls off of the crown store, but you can also get them while you level up, and you can also respec through shrines in main town areas. And of course, if you use the second armory slot, which hasn't been used yet, as long as you haven't used it, you can actually wipe your whole character and reset for free. Maybe we'll put that in another video. So, the first skill is Assassin's Blade. Now, this is an execute, so this is only for low health targets. Basically, it costs magicka, has 7 meter range, and you would light attack, weave, and hit this. If you don't know about light attack weaving, by the way, there's a video on my channel. The thumbnail says weave like a pro. It's in the description. Basically, you would light attack, hit, light attack, hit, light attack, hit to get the most out of your DPS, but they have to be under 25% health. If they are not, you will get the flat amount of damage that this provides, regardless of your setup. Of course, you can increase the damage that that does based on your build, but it's only going to be the lower version of it. The stronger version of this skill requires the target to have low health, and you will do up to 300% more damage. Now, that 300% more damage is flat, so 25% and lower, it will consistently do the same amount, depending on crits, obviously. It won't escalate. This is where things differ. Killer's Blade does escalate. So, this costs stamina now. It's still got 7 meter range, but instead of doing magic damage, it applies disease damage, which of course could come with a status chance effect with it, which could lower their healing done and their health recovery, which is quite nice, depending on the target. But it's no longer a flat value. So while before you had to wait until they were 25% health or lower and you would consistently do 300% more damage, this one gets stronger and stronger and stronger the lower their health. It starts at a different threshold at 50% instead of 25, but it will go up to 400% stronger the lower they are. So while the other one is very consistent with always 300% increase, starting from 25 and going on from there, this one will get stronger throughout. I wouldn't recommend firing this at 50% health because that is too close to the threshold, and your general DPS that you're already applying will probably be quite a bit more than this at that point. What I'd recommend is wait until it goes to about 35, 40, because that's when it's going to start to peak, and then it will dramatically enhance from there onwards. Bear in mind also, if you kill an enemy, or if an enemy dies within 2 seconds of you using it, you will heal, which is pretty nasty. It's a big, big heal, and yes, that can get very, very strong. You can get in excess of around 20k heals and way higher depending on how you build. The other morph is very similar to the original. The damage has been increased, so it's now 330 instead of 300. But again, that doesn't go up to 400 like this one. It doesn't gradually get stronger. It just gets stronger at 25% and lower. One major benefit to this, though, over Killer's Blade, is that it's got its range. This does have a 28 meter range now instead of 7. So it's a trade-off. This will cost stamina and get dramatically more powerful, but it's close quarter. This one will cost magicka. It's still stronger, but you've got big range. Up to you which one you use. They're both basically fired the same, just distance is a contributor there. So, Teleport Strike. This one is quite simple. This will make you jump across the room. I probably should have shown you Assassin's Blade, really, shouldn't I? It looks like this. That's a lightning staff. Ignore that. There you go. You would light attack even between that, regardless of the weapon choice that you have picked. Light hit, light hit, light hit. Obviously, that's very, very low at the moment because that is a high health target. Anyway. Teleport Strike makes you jump across the room. 22 meter range, no higher. You cannot extend that by any buffs or bonuses because anything that is 22 meters or below doesn't come into play, doesn't get considered when it comes to extension on range buffs. So bear that in mind. All gap closers like this are the same. It will apply minor vulnerability on the target, meaning you will do 5% more damage to them as a group. And it deals magic damage on impact. Simple as this. That is now debuffed. You can hit it harder. And you covered a gap. Instead of having to run in and then hit him, you can get in nice and early, very, very quickly. Surprise. Now the variants. You've got 2 different morphs, obviously. One targets in an area around the enemy to take damage, and they're afflicted with minor vulnerability, so everyone in the area of effect is. This is Lotus Fan. It does damage initially, but after teleporting, you unleash a Fan of Lives, dealing an additional amount of damage, which is almost 12k magicka over 20 seconds. Bear in mind, that's damage over time. Now, read this very carefully, because it says it does damage on impact, which it does, and it does require a single target. So the initial damage is single target, but after teleporting, you unleash the damage over time. That can be very, very high or very, very low, depending on how you build. But lots of people try to utilize this when it comes to the Tormentor set, because they think that because it hits multiple targets, they all trigger the set and can be taunted. That is inaccurate. The Tormentor set must apply damage in the direct damage form when it lands to apply a taunt to the targets. So 2 considerations here. 1, if it's immune, it doesn't count because it didn't do damage. And 2, if it doesn't hit multiple targets on impact, it won't work for multiple targets. As you can see here, after teleporting, other targets get hit. So the initial hit is only single target. So this will not work for people trying to utilize that set. It will obviously taunt the main target, but not the surrounding ones. So think again on that one. Ambush, the other variant, converts it to a stamina ability. It does physical damage instead, but it also gives you Empower and Minor Berserk. So it will do single target damage on impact. It doesn't have damage over time attached to it. It does still apply minor vulnerability, but it also gives you a 70% increase to all of your heavy attack damage versus PvE targets. And it also increases your damage done to all targets by a further 5%. So this one increases your damage. This one applies a dot. And we'll activate this one just so you can see the difference. As you can see here, it will apply in single target and then the dot will spread afterwards. Now they've got the ticks on them. Technically speaking, this is the only initial impact. This target here, you'll see a target impact or damage hit above his head. It's only hitting one. Any that pop up outside of this are status effects that are coming from the damage over time effect of it. It doesn't count as a full AoE direct. So bear that in mind when looking at certain sets. Blur is quite fun actually. This surrounds you with a bubble basically, and you get Major Evasion, which reduces all damage you take from all area of effect damage from, well, by 20% for a whole 20 seconds. It is quite expensive. You don't really want to spam it. It looks like that. If you're not glowing with the red bubble, then it fell off. While taking direct damage, by the way, you reduce the cost of your next dodge roll by 10% up to a maximum of 100%, and this effect can stack up to once every half a second. So technically speaking, over a 5-second period, if you do get hit 10 times, your next dodge roll is free. Outside of that, if you take multiple hits, regardless, your dodge rolls are cheaper. So you have Major Evasion, so you take less AoE damage, and you can dodge roll for much less stamina. Very helpful. Mirage will give you Minor Resolve, increasing your physical and spell resistance by 2,974. Minor Resolve and Major Resolve do stack. They are separate buffs, but this is the minor version. The major one comes from our passives, which I'll explain in a moment. Reduces the cost as ability ranks up as well, which is also quite helpful. Alongside of it, you still do keep the Major Evasion, and you keep the dodge roll reduction to cost. This version, however, grants you snare and immobilization immunity for a short duration. So if you activate this, you basically can't be stunned or immobilized. So one of them gives you a resistance bonus, the other one gives you more mobility. They all look relatively similar, so it doesn't really matter about the visuals, but bear in mind, if that isn't showing, it's fell off, be careful. Pretty cool skill though. Mark Target is a resistance debuff. You put Major Breach on a target for 20 seconds, it does cost Magicka, and you can fire this from up to 50 meters away. It is the longest skill in the game as far as range is concerned. You can put this on a target and mark them from a very, very long way. When a marked target dies, you heal all of your health. Doesn't matter if you have 10k health or 100k health. You heal to full health. Bear in mind, however, you can only have one target marked at a time. Looks like this. Obvious beacon on that target. Your group now know which one to hit and which one is debuffed. And yes, again, you can do this from a very, very long distance away. I cannot reach with that. I cannot reach with any of this. It won't reach, but that will. So even if you're hiding, you could pick out a target, and it doesn't break your stealth either. So you can pinpoint individual targets with no risk at all. And, as you can see here, it doesn't actually start combat. So you can pre-debuff something. Now the two morphs. This one is Pierce and Mark. The ability has an increased duration, so it now lasts a whole minute rather than 20 seconds. And you can see the target even if they use stealth or invisibility. So if they're trying to get away from you and hide, they cannot. The other version, if the target dies, you get Major Berserk, increasing all of the damage you do by 10% for 10 seconds. So it does take up a whole slot. It does cost Magicka, obviously. You might have the debuff in the group anyway, so maybe you don't need it. But if you are utilizing it for Berserk and things are dying very, very fast, it is helpful. Not many classes have a castable Berserk, really. Grim Focus. This is the one that confuses people. Be confused no more. This was changed. While slotted on either bar, listen to that very carefully, either bar, front or back, you basically cause all of your light attacks or heavy attacks to generate stacks towards Grim Focus. If you do a light attack, that stacks 1. If you do a heavy attack, that stacks 2. You need 5, and at 5, you're at maximum. When you have those stacks, you now have increased weapon and spell damage. 60 per stack, so yes, 300. Now, when your stacks are full, you have two choices. Consume them, do a massive amount of damage, and if you're close enough, you get a big heal. Or keep them and keep the weapon and spell damage bonus. You can stack light attacks, fire it, stack light attacks, fire it, and get loads of damage and heal. Or you can keep it and maintain a 300 weapon and spell damage. Up to you. Relentless Focus costs stamina instead when you fire it, but increases the amount of weapon and spell damage you get from this and reduces the cost. So it's cheaper to fire, but a different resource. Does disease damage instead of magic damage, and the spell damage is now 80 per tick instead of 60. So instead of 300 weapon and spell damage, you now have 400. You fire it the same way, you stack it the same way. But bear in mind that heal is only when you're in melee range for either of the morphs. You got to be within 7 meters to get the heal, but you can fire it from up to 28 meters away. Merciless Resolve is different because it increases the damage and healing of it. So you don't stack as much weapon and spell damage if you were trying to keep it, but you do more damage and the heal is larger. So it's a trade-off. Stack more damage and hold on to it and have it as an emergency heal and damage, or build them up, fire it, build them up, fire it. The morphs are pretty much fired the same way, they just have slightly different beneficial effects. Shadow, this is the fun one. Veiled Strike. Slash an enemy with magic damage, and if you strike them from their flank, they will be set off balance. Off balance is quite simple. It can happen for 7 seconds, and once it's gone, each enemy that was off balance is now immune to off balance effects for 15 seconds. Then afterwards, they can be off balance again for a further 7, and so on and so forth. During that window of opportunity, you can take advantage of certain buffs and bonuses within your champion points or other skills, but essentially, if you heavy attack a target that is off balance, if it's not a boss, it will land on the ground and be stunned. If it is a boss, it won't. But either way, you will get double resources back from a heavy attack, and you will do 70% more damage with a heavy attack. Yes, that does also count with Empower, and they stack. So off balance is a very useful bonus to take advantage of, but you have to be flanking to apply it. Basically, it's a spammable. Next, however, is the morph choice. The stamina variant now does physical damage and always applies a Sunder status effect. A Sunder status effect is the effect from physical damage if you're lucky enough to proc it. This comes with it. And that will apply minor breach to the target, meaning that 2, 9, 7, 4 resistances are removed during that period, which is normally only about 4 seconds. But if you spam this, that's easy. Bear in mind, this is close range. Now, it does physical damage, but it can apply off balance just like before if it's from flank. However, this attack will also be a guaranteed crit up to once every 3 seconds. So it's very, very nice. While slotted, you gain minor expedition, leave-in sneak, invisibility, or casting the ability while you have major expedition is active will also increase your damage done. Now, that isn't quite as straightforward as it seems because they didn't mention this until later, but we'll read this here. The green stuff is a vague overview. This one is a bit more in depth. Basically, if you already have a run speed bonus giving you major expedition, while in combat, you will gain the buff called Major Berserk, which increases your damage done by 10%. Granted, the mark does apply Major Berserk, but you have to kill something. This, you just have to use the skill while you have a speed buff. Remember at the beginning I said that you don't always have a buff from a specific skill where you have to apply it and done. This is more leading, where you have to have several different effects at once in order for the skills to have side effects. Well, this is one of those. If you have a run speed buff at the time that is Major Expedition, you will hit harder. But you have to apply the skill during that time, so you've got to keep an eye on your buffs and bonuses. Also, while slotted, you are faster. So you've got Minor Expedition for slotting it. Major Expedition needs to be present to take advantage of Berserk. Outside of that, their application is the same, just a different resource cost. One is magic, one is stamina. Now, we're going to skip ahead a little bit by 2 skills, just so this makes more sense to you. Path of Darkness. So, basically, this allows you to have a speed buff. So, it creates a corridor in front of you, which is big spread area of effect, for 12 seconds, granting you and allies major expedition. So they're trying to teach you here that if you have that buff, you can take advantage of Berserk by using this. Maintain this, spam this. Very hard hitting. But the 2 morphs come with slight alterations to the skill. Instead of it being a corridor with a speed buff only, it becomes a conal effect, and you can now do damage with it. So you do damage every 1 second, and you get the speed buff, so do your allies, and just bear in mind, of course, if you leave the path, 4 seconds afterwards, you still maintain the buff. So technically 16 seconds worth if you see the full duration through. But technically speaking, again, you want to overlap this. It does change it to a cone, but it does do damage over time as well as the buff. This other version maintains the original shape in the form of a corridor, but the path heals you and your allies and increases their magicka and stamina recovery. So they get major expedition. They also get minor endurance, intellect, and fortitude at the same time as healing them every 1 second. That obviously depends on how you build as to how strong that would be, but they are two very different morphs. Both of them give a speed buff to you in your group, but one is damage, one is heals. Now, Shadow Cloak is your invisibility. Basically, if you activate this, you're hidden and you can move. Don't sprint because it'll fall off. If you use any abilities, it will fall off within reason. There are certain skills that don't. That's for another day. But there are two different morphs. Bear in mind, by the way, while this is slotted on any bar, including your back bar just for slotting it, you get Major Prophecy and Savagery, increasing your weapon and spell crit rating by 2629. Remember, crit rating is 219 for 1%. We'll speak more about that later. Shadowy Disguise. Costs magicka, of course. Guarantees a critical strike on your next attack. And the cost decreases as you rank this skill up. So you do go invisible. And you definitely crit from stealth, regardless of what you use. However, the other morph doesn't make you go invisible. This morph heals you instead. So you heal yourself for X amount of damage, depending on how high your health is, because this scales in strength the higher your health bar. So if you are a very, very, very chunky tank and you have like 60, 70k health, this heal is massive. If you're very squishy, it's really weak. So it depends on how you build as to whether you want to take advantage of that or not. But big heal, and it will heal you once a second for 5 seconds. But if you stand still, it will heal you for 150% more. And while slotted on any bar, you get minor protection all the time. And now, as you can see, we don't actually go invisible. We just go into a shadow and have big heals. We've actually got quite a lot of health. That's massive. That's a really big heal. Aspect of Terror is a fear, essentially. Basically, it will stun people for 4 seconds in a 6-meter radius, and it also affects them with Major Cowardice for 12 seconds, reducing their weapon and spell damage. So that does affect PvE targets as well. You can now be hit much, much less by them. It's a debuff to their damage. Fear used to make things run away. Now it kind of stifles them on the spot. Two different morphs, however. Mass Hysteria. The ability no longer has a cap of how many targets, because anything that has a debuff on it generally caps at 6. But this can now fear a uncapped amount. And the duration is extended. That is now for 5 seconds instead of 4. Still applies to Major Cowardice, but it's now longer and infinite amounts of targets. So if you're in a big, big stack, everyone is stuffed. So basically it looks like this. You fear around you, and you fear the targets close by. 6-meter radius, not too far. Mass Hysteria is uncapped. The other version, a bit different. 22-second period of time where you can place this, and it will disappear if it doesn't fire. So that you put there. When it runs out, it's gone. You need to apply it again. If someone runs into it, then it's stuffed, basically. So anyone that runs into it will cause a 6-meter area of effect stun to anyone close by, and Major Cowardice to those present. Again, this is capped where the other one is not. So it is capped at 6. The Mass Hysteria is uncapped. Bear in mind, however, the Major Cowardice, the debuff side of things, is still capped at 6 regardless of the morph. The Fear is the one that differs. It does take a second or so to arm it, in fact 2 seconds, and it can be flung at range, so you can put it in a doorway somewhere if you're in PvP and just wait for people to run in, but how you use it is up to you. It's a fear, it's a stun, it's for control. Summon Shade, very simple, this is a pet. Let's put this on the bar. You summon a minion, and he will attack whoever you're attacking. And if you heavy attack a target, it will change targets and go and hit them instead. Just like any other pet, it will swap around and move to someone else. Got pretty good range, so he doesn't have to move too much if the enemies are quite close together. As you saw there, the damage was above his head and he didn't really move that much, but that essentially is what that's for. That is your pet. Now, you will need to recast it because it's a fire and forget, and it does do magic damage every 2 seconds and inflicts minor maim on the targets, meaning they do less damage. Two morphs are very different to each other, though. Yes, you still get a pet, but they're not quite the same. This one deals increased damage and occasionally casts an area of effect ability, which is quite nice and does a decent amount of damage. The other morph, however, is a teleport. So you can utilize this tactically in combat. Place your pet there. Place it again, you teleport to it. So he can still fight. And you can get out of trouble. He's ranged, by the way. And you can go to it. Wherever you put it is where it sits. But if you want to get out of trouble and then come back again, you teleport to it. How you use the skill is up to you, but just remember the first cast is the placement, the second one is the teleport. Now we've got Siphoning, and this is the final skill set, but this one is a little different. So this is all about stealing health. So the first skill is Strife. Basically, you do magic, and you heal yourself and a nearby ally 57% of the damage inflicted. That can be altered depending on healing done, healing received, etc., and then damage stats. But essentially, you do damage, and you heal you and a friend. Well, you or a friend, depending on who's lowest. Final health heals an additional target, so you and a friend, rather than you or. This other version, however, increases the damage done, but reduces the healing caused, and it only heals you. So the first version heals you or an ally. The second one heals you and an ally. This one only heals you. Now, while it does give you a lesser heal, it is just for you, and it is never going to go anywhere else. But the heal is based off of the damage, so you can get a very large heal out of it. And if you were to spam this, you can take a heal up front from each cast, obviously, or you can just fire it once and leave it running. As you can see now, I don't have a target. My debuff timers are still running. My buff timers are still running. My ability bar is still ticking over, and I'm still healing. Why? Because, read very carefully, not only does it heal you for the damage done, it heals you over 10 seconds. So it's a hot heal over time. Every 2 seconds, you will receive a heal based on the damage done. So the higher you spec into damage, the stronger this is. Malevolent Offering. Basically, this will heal you or an ally in front of you while draining your health over 3 seconds. So it does cost magicka, but it takes 1k of your health in order to heal somebody else for 12. So you're trading off. And that looks like this. Just in front of you, nice and easy. Swirly stuff around you. Bear in mind again, it does consider the fact that you need to steal health from yourself. So if you spam it, as you can see on the buff timers there, I've got multiple sources of health being removed from me over time. Easy to maintain though. Especially through health recovery. In fact, your health recovery can out heal that. The morphs are different. Reduces the magical cost and the duration of the health cost. So you still steal health from yourself, but it's over 2 seconds instead of 3. So that actually helps your survival more, but it still effectively does the same thing. It's just cheaper. This, however, grants you minor mendant after casting, increasing your healing done. So while the skill acts the same, you now have a healing bonus for 10 seconds. Again, very easy to apply. Big heal for you or somebody else, at the same time as taking health from you, but your heals are stronger, including the actual cast itself. That's how you heal as a Nightblade. Bear in mind, it's a 28-meter cone, so it's quite good range-wise, but you need to be looking in the direction of the person you want to heal. Cripple is a damage skill, so this does damage over time over 20 seconds and reduces the movement speed of the target. Quite simple. You just apply it to them, just like you would any other single target ability, and now it's got damage over time on it. The morphs are slightly different, however. Debilitate increases the snare potency, so you slow them down a lot more, 50% in fact, for 4 seconds, and the damage over time is pretty much the same, but it does apply overcharged every single tick. So every single tick of damage will apply Magicka Steel to the target, meaning that if you attack them, you will get 168 back at least once a second for hurting it, and so will your group. So that is a damage over time, plus a buff for everybody else, as long as they're hitting it. The other version, however, has slightly less damage over time, but has an upfront direct hit when it lands, and it immobilizes the target. The Nightblade doesn't have an area of effect mobilize, but it does have a single target mobilize, so you can utilize it for that purpose if you want to. Not to mention, of course, over time, you will find more damage comes from this versus this. So they're very, very similar, but this one applies some control, whereas this one applies magic steel. Siphoning Strikes is your sustainability skill. Basically, it costs magicka to start with and lasts 20 seconds, and you have to imagine this like a pot. So the longer it runs, the fuller the pot gets. So your light attacks and heavy attacks will heal you over that period of time. So heavy attacks will give you double the amount, and light attacks will give you obviously the base. But when it's finished, it has a side effect to it. But that doesn't kick in until you morph it. Now, there's two different ways to morph it. Stamina or magicka. This one turns into a stamina ability. Light and heavy attacks, obviously, when they're finished, if you do a full heavy or you just do a light attack, will heal you, but they'll also restore stamina. Remember, a heavy attack is double the health and double the stamina. But when the ability is over, you will restore stamina based on how long it has been running. So if it's been running for its full duration, you will automatically receive 4,270 stamina. But if you reactivate it during its timer, you will take however much it has stacked up in that pot for that amount of time. So if you overlap this, you can get stamina back, but you obviously have to consider you want to outplay the cost. So it's a resource management skill, much like Rally, except resources in stamina or magicka rather than health. This is the magical variant. It's exactly the same, but one is stam, one is mag. So keep an eye on it. Don't let it run out. And if you do let it run out, reapply it almost instantly. And it's very simple. Either morph is fine, depending on your build, but they act the same. Activate this. You can see that it does the funnily thing in the air, so you know it's there. The timer on the right-hand side of my buff timers, that is where it is counting down. Unless, of course, you're in combat, in which case you can see it on the bar. If you let it run to about halfway, you will get back more than you've spent. If you keep reapplying it, you will just waste resources. All you need to do is light attack, and you'll get a heal and stamina. Or heavy attack, and you'll get a bigger heal and stamina. If it's the magical version, same applies, except the other pool. Reapply it, big load of resources back. So maintain it and apply it if you need a burst, but don't let it kind of be used too soon. If you start using it every 5 or 6 seconds, you're wasting your time. If you use it halfway through or towards the end, much better. Drain power is the way that you gain major brutality or major sorcery outside of pots or other skills. Activating it in combat and hitting an enemy with it will deal damage in area of effect and will give you that buff. So quite simple. You must attack a target with it, and for doing so, you get major sorcery and major brutality, increasing your weapon and spell damage by 20% for the duration. But there are two different morphs to it, as there is of every other skill. This one costs stamina now instead of magicka, and it does disease damage instead of magic damage, and applies minor cowardice to the enemy's hit, which will reduce their weapon and spell damage by 215. And yes, that does stack with major cowardice that comes from this, the fear. So you can stack the two together to have major cowardice and minor cowardice, removing 645 weapon and spell damage for the duration. It's pretty good. But at the same time, again, remember, this is disease damage, so it could apply the status effect from it, which is Minor Defile. So Minor Defile affects their healing done and their health recovery. Sap Essence, however, costs magicka, and it heals you and your allies based on the damage done. So, if you do damage, all nearby allies will be healed, including yourself, for 20% more for each enemy hit. So, obviously, the way you scale this is based on your resources, your flat damage bonuses, etc., etc. But the higher it is, the better, and the more enemies, the better. As you can see here, this will be... Let's move this target over here. We'll do a small one. Do damage. Big heal. 4k. Nice. 4.7. 3. You can crit it, of course. Now, that was about 4.7k if you crit it. Now we've got a 6.8. And that is for everyone else as well. But bear in mind, they have to be very close. The more enemies, the bigger the heal. The closer the ally, the more they'll get from it. If they're not close enough to these enemies, they will only get half the heal or some of the heal, or they won't get hardly any at all. They have to be close to the group. So Nightblade healing is generally done a close quarter if people want to take advantage of stuff like that. Sap Essence is basically how people used to make sap tanks. Big room, activate that. As long as you got high weapon and spell damage, it's actually pretty healthy. And you can get a really big heal out of spamming it. It's tricky to do, but you can. Now we're going to go into ultimates. So first of all, you've got Deathstroke. This is a single target hit. It's 7 meter range, only costs 70 ultimate and does magic damage initially. The target affected with this will take 20% more damage from all of your damage, anything that you apply to it, single target, for the next 8 seconds. Bear in mind, this is channeled at 0.4 seconds, so no, you cannot animation cancel this. You can light attack fire it, yes, but you can't bar swap it once you've fired it until that channel is over. So, apply it, then smash into the target, extra damage, happy days. 2 different morphs, however. Incapacitating Strike deals disease damage, and if cast with higher ultimate, it will stun the target. So while slotted, your damage from your light and heavy attacks also return resources. So you get Reeve, which is a very rare skill. It's not used pretty much anywhere apart from here, but you get 100 magicka and stamina back when you deal light or heavy attacks to the target. So alongside your siphoning skills, you can stack them together and your resources are really easy to manage. The stun comes from 120 ultimate instead of 70, but against bosses that's irrelevant. Basically, it costs the same, it does the same, hit the target, you'll do more damage. This one, however, doesn't have Reeve with it. It doesn't have the stun if you have more ultimate, but it does do magic damage now instead of disease. It applies exactly the same way, but it also major defiles the target, reducing their healing done and health recovery, at the same time as one massive bonus. That is, while it is slotted, anytime you get a kill, you will get 10 ultimate back. So if you are killing an entire room of enemies, one by one, PvE or PvP, you will dramatically generate ultimate in order to just fire it again. Remember, pick your targets because this is single target. And if you fire it at one ad and then it dies and then you go over to another and expect to get loads of deeps out of it, you won't. It's only on the target that has been affected with this skill. Very cheap, easy ulti builder. You can actually just slot this on one bar to build up a bigger ulti on the back. It's up to you. Shadow, Consuming Darkness. Puts a ring on the floor and this basically helps people not be dead. Enemies inside of this will have a movement speed reduction debuff, so they will be 70% slower, and it also applies major protection to allies inside of it, so they'll have a 10% reduction to damage from the enemies. Also, allies in the area can activate a hidden refresh synergy, which grants them invisibility and increases their movement speed and heals them. So if anyone takes the synergy inside of this circle, they can bolt out of trouble invisible with a big heal. 2 different morphs. Major protection persists after leaving the area, so if they bolt out of the circle, they keep the major protection rather than having to stay inside of it. Veil of Blades, however, enemies in the area also take damage. So big snare, big damage, take a synergy and go invisible and run off and have a heal. Remember, this one you can run off and keep protection, this one you just run off and have the heal running. They both have the heal, but this one maintains the bonus to reduction to damage taken. So that's your defense bonus. Now, Soul Shred is a burst of damage and area of effect, and your allies can take advantage of a synergy and heal themselves for the damage caused. So the more damage, the better. It's not too bad on cost, 150 ultimate, and it's an 8 meter radius, but bear in mind this is a channel, so you can't block while doing this. Now, the morphs are slightly different. This one heals you and your allies instead of damaging and stunning the enemies. So again, this one bursts, stuns, and damages. Lots of bomb builds use it. This one doesn't stun, doesn't do damage, and gives everyone a big heal. It also gives you and your allies major vitality, increasing their healing received by 16% for 4 seconds. And again, an ally can take advantage of this and deal damage to the enemy and heal for the damage caused. So it's quite handy synergy there. The other morph, basically you have an extra bonus. Enemies are tethered to you for 8 seconds, and while they remain within 10 meters, you siphon health from them once every second. So you still apply the damage, you still apply the stun, but now you drain health from them. So big heal for you, and your group again can benefit from the synergy to heal themselves. Passives. So these will start lining up. Passives do apply to ultimates, by the way, unless they say otherwise. Increasing your physical and spell penetration against enemies you are flanking. So that doesn't require you to have one of these skills, but if you do have this passive, anytime you are flanking a target, you will have more penetration values towards their resistances. You basically act like that amount of resistances don't exist. Also increases the duration of the stun from sneak by 100%. So yes, if you hit someone from sneak, you'll stun them. Duration is longer for this class. When an enemy dies within 2 seconds of being damaged by you, you restore 1000 magicka and stamina. So your resource management is quite simple as long as you are actively killing things. Increases your weapon and spell crit ratings by 4, 3, 8 for each assassin ability slotted. So you must have skills from this skill line slotted on your bar in order to take advantage of this. Now, to calculate this accurately, apart from minor decimals that they don't tell you about because they're hidden, 219 crit rating is 1%. So basically you got 2% chance for each skill slotted. Increases your critical damage done by 10%, so if you do crit, the damage is higher. And dealing critical damage grants you and your group minor savagery, increasing their weapon crit rating by 1314. So, for 20 seconds, just for critting, you give your whole group a physical crit bonus. Bear in mind, you must have an assassination skill slotted on the bar that you crit on in order to fire this. So, that's why lots of people like to slot one skill from this skill line on both bars. Increases your health, magicka, and stam recovery. Easy, get that. Casting a shadow ability grants you major resolve for 6 seconds, increasing your physical and spell resistance by 5, 9, 4, 8. This duration is increased by 25% for each piece of heavy armor equipped. At the moment, I've got a bit of heavy armor on, I think one piece. So the duration is 7.5 seconds rather than 6. Bear in mind, this buff usually comes from an individual skill on most classes. They will have a buff that gives them major resolve. Yours is not tied to any one skill. Yours is tied to 5 and an ultimate. If you activate any of these skills, it will restart this timer and you can maintain major resolve without the need to have a unique individual skill specifically for it. If you are built really, really tanky and have lots of heavy armor, you can have this buff for much, much longer, again, without slotting a specific skill. There are 5 individual skills to benefit from it. So it's up to you. And yes, your invisibility counts. Now, this increases your maximum health by 3% for each shadow ability slotted. So if you want to be really, really chunky and make this stronger, then slot more of these. Nice and simple. So tanks, remember that. That's how you get more health. Increases the duration of your non-invisibility based shadow abilities by 2 seconds. Of course, anything that doesn't make you go invisible, including this new morph of this version of the skill, is extended. Siphoning is very important. If you take a potion, you get 20 ultimate. Your main ultimate, which you would be using most of the time if you were a DPS, or you should be, or if you're not, it's up to you. 70 ultimate. Just for taking a potion, 20 of that is done. It doesn't take you very long. Increases your maximum magicka by 8% for having an ability from this skill line slotted. Yes, that does include the ultimate. So if you want 8% increase, slot one of these skills. Increases your healing done by 3% per skill slotted. So if you want these to be stronger, or you want your shadow ability that heals you to be stronger, you need to slot some of these skills. Each one will improve that by 3%. And casting a siphoning ability will give you 2 ultimate, and this can happen once every 4 seconds. So if you're spamming siphon abilities, or using one at least once every 4 seconds, you will generate ultimate very quickly. So that, in a nutshell, is the Nightblade. You've got multiple passives that line up together to complement other skills in other skill lines, or skills in their own skill line. For slotting things, you get more health, more magicka, healing done. For using active abilities, you generate buffs and bonuses that don't have a individual skill that they belong to. They just belong to a skill line. There's lots and lots of different things you can do. You can hide and run away. You can teleport from one place to another to get into a fight. You can teleport to get out of a fight. You can evade or jump in and attack, basically. You are a rogue of sorts, and backstabbing will benefit you. But at the same time, you can heal incredibly well by sacrificing your own health, and you can tank very, very well by turtling up, standing on the spot, and taking advantage of very, very high healing skills. Not to mention, of course, the quicker you kill something, the more resources you get back, you're back in the fight ready to kill something else. You are very fast at killing things at low health, and that pushes you from one target to the next to the next. So while some builds or some classes are designed to have very consistent DPS as a damage dealer, if you like, and then a reasonable ultimate, you peak at low health. You are the assassin. You're the one that finishes stuff off. Now, we're going to look at a couple of sets here that kind of help towards the class identity of the Nightblade, specifically one of the new ones, just to give you some ideas of where you could go with your own unique builds. Now, we're going to use the transmutation station to allow us to see all the stuff and things, but basically, this is one that you're really going to like. The Endless Archive was released recently. It's a base game instance, and anyone in the game can have it. It is 100% free, and this changed the game for everybody, not just for content and engagement with your own group member, because you can play with one person or yourself, but we got class sets. The Nightblade class set is very, very, very useful, regardless of how you play. So you've got weapon and spell damage, magicka, and weapon and spell damage again, which is nice, but it increases the damage and healing of your siphoning abilities, which means, yes, your Swallow Soul ability does more damage now, and it heals you for more as well, as does the rest of the skill line. But at the same time, the cost is down. You actually spend less resources for getting more out of it. The only side effect is it costs you 1 ultimate per skill. Now, you generate ultimate very, very fast. You will generate ultimate 3 every 1 second if you are actively in combat doing light attacks, heavies, etc., etc. You lose 1 of that. But remember, your siphoning skill line gives you 2 ultimate once every 4 seconds anyway. So you can still build up your very cheap ultimate skills very, very fast, and you can benefit from higher healing if you're a healer, higher damage if you're a damage dealer, or just better utility all round if you're not. So that's a really, really cool set, and that is unique to the Nightblade only. You cannot use it on any other class. Now, when we look at some other stuff here, there are so many sets in the game. We could be here for a very, very long time, but these sorts of things help kind of make you feel like an actual Nightblade when we come to class identity. You've got one here from Wayrest Sewers. This is from Wayrest Sewers 2, and this is Malabeth Scourger. This is a healing of sorts set based on you taking damage. It basically looks like a harvester, and you must get hit. When you do get hit, you tether the enemy, much like your other abilities where you steal health. This is what it does. It will actually steal health, doing magic damage to the target. It will give you major vitality, and you will constantly heal based on your maximum health. So the higher the health, the bigger the heal, the bigger the damage, etc., etc. These bonuses all stacking up do actually support you as a healer, a tank, or a DPS, because it will give you that extra boost to your healing skills, and it will make you feel like you're siphoning from the enemy yet again. When we're talking about tanky stuff, especially for the Nightblade, again, we've got not really a unique set, because there's a couple very similar to it, but there is one in Castle Thorn here, if I can find it. It's in alphabetical order, by the way, people. This is nice and easy. I can't even do it. And we've got Twilight. Twilight is very cool. After taking damage again, you will basically burst with blood going everywhere, which is fitting for the Nightblade, and you will apply a bleed to the target's area of effect. Now, it's not a damage over time bleed. It's just a bleed source, which means it's direct physical damage, and the bleed side of it allows for a possibility for it to be a bleed status effect. If that does happen, you basically might mangle the targets, reducing their health by 10%, and you apply hemorrhage, which is a damage over time as well. So it can actually be quite helpful for bursts of damage if you're lucky with status. But again, on the siphoning side of things, when you take damage, you pop doing damage in return, and you heal from it. So again, get hit, do damage in return, siphon off of it, much like the Sap Essence skill itself, except more automated. You've also got Unleashed Terror. This is more DPS-y, I guess, or you could use it for a tank if you want. If you use a blink, charge, teleport, or leap, or pull ability, yes, we have a teleport. Yes, we have a charge ability, or blink, which is our ambush. If you applied it to a target, you will cause them to bleed. We're a Nightblade. We stab in the back. We make things bleed. And the bleed damage over time could apply a status effect normally, but this set comes with a little bit of a bonus. It guarantees a hemorrhage status effect. So you minor mangle the targets, you put the bleed damage over time on them, you put the hemorrhage damage over time on them, and this can happen once every 10 seconds per target. So you can jump from one to another to another to another, and each one, being an individual target, can have an individual bleed and minor mangle and hemorrhage on them. That's actually really, really fun. Now, when it comes to the healing side of things, outside of obviously Malabeth, because that's a more tanky and healy bonus type set, we've got a few fun things that you can mess with, but this one you might really, really like. And it's not necessarily a healing set, but it is what a lot of healers have used in the past, and it's even been on one of my DPS builds on the past for the Templar, and that is in Moongrave Fane, which is a DLC dungeon, and we're looking at the Hollowfang Thirst. Now again, this isn't a healing set, but it does benefit for a DPS or a healer because it has two very specific rules. You need to critically hit or critically heal. So either side of the coin here. And for doing so, you basically spawn a ball of hemoglobin, again, blood for the Nightblade, and it will pop in the middle of the room, and anyone standing inside it when it pops will get Magicka back. It will also apply minor vitality to anyone inside of it, you included, which will increase healing received by 8%. So any healing you do that heals other people or yourself will be enhanced. So minor mending increases the flat healing that you do. Minor vitality increases the healing that you receive. And yes, they stack. One going out, one coming in. Happy days. So these kind of things are all blood-based, all siphoning-based, and all somewhat position-based as well because they're close quarter. But these are just some fun things that you can look at to take advantage of some of their identity-based visuals when coming to the Nightblade, if you like. The ones that make it look like you are doing what you should be doing. Now, that's not to say that you're restricted, because there's so many sets in the game. You could be here for thousands of years trying to try out every single possible combination down to the smallest variable. But again, they're just some of the few things that you could look at if you're trying to aesthetically please your Nightblade visuals. So hopefully that helped. Hopefully that wasn't too boring. If you look at the top left-hand side of the screen, you will see that there is a build there called the Status Pro build. That is a Magblade. On the top right, you've got the Flawless build, which is a Magblade as well. On the bottom left, you've got Sting, which is a Standblade. And finally, on the bottom right, you've got a two-hander and resto tank called Malice. They are all unique in their own right. Have a look, see what you fancy. And you know what? They might even influence you to make your own. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.